What's up, everybody? Nico Dwyer back with you for the 10th inning, giving you another episode of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw Albert Pujols become the 9th player in MLB history to hit his 600th career home run. Now, we don't have any MLB player hitting their 600th home run today, but we do have some career home run milestones. So before we get into it, if you all enjoy this video, leave a like on it. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button, and without further ado, let's get into it. This Day in Sports History. We start out today in 1890, and Tim Keefe, currently playing for the Players League at this time, notches his 300th career victory. Keefe would become the second member of the 300 win club with a 9-4 victory over the Boston Reds. Keefe would end his career with 342 wins, which are still top 10 all time. And in 1890, as part of the Players League was pretty much a failure. He didn't really do much. The highlight of his time in the Players League was getting his 300th victory. Now we move up to 1927, and we have the first Ryder Cup between the United States and Great Britain/Ireland. This Ryder Cup would just start a run of dominance for the United States. The U.S. defeated Great Britain/Ireland 9.5 points to 2.5 points. The American team was led by Walter Hagen as captain and Ted Ray. The United States won the Friday foursome matches 3-1, then won the Saturday single matches 6.5 to 1.5 to equal 9.5 to 2.5. The United States wouldn't lose for another 10 years. We move up a year later and go to the French Championships. On the men's side, Henri Cochet won the second of 4 French titles, defeating René Lacoste 5-7, 6-3, 6-1, 6-3 in 4 sets. This would be the third major victory in the singles game of 7 overall victories for Cochet. Then on the women's side, Helen Wills defeated Eileen Bennett 6-1, 6-2 for the first of 4 French single titles, the 6th of her 19 overall major titles in the single game. We go right back to the Walker Cup in 1938 at the 10th edition of it. Great Britain and Ireland finally got their first victory over the United States. They won 7.5 to 4.5, with Britain and Ireland taking a 2.5 to 1.5 lead after the Friday foursomes, and then Britain and Ireland taking a 5-3 lead on Saturday's singles to get their first victory in the Ryder Cup, making the overall score 9-1. Now we move to Major League Baseball, and we have some night games for you, both in 1940. We start out at Sportsman's Park in St. Louis. The St. Louis Cardinals are hosting the Brooklyn Dodgers. And this was not a very good game for the Cardinals, losing 10-1. For the Dodgers, Vito Tamoulis was on the mound. He threw 9 innings, gave up 11 hits, 1 run allowed with 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts in the victory. Then we moved to Forbes Field in Pittsburgh, which saw the Pirates hosting the Braves, and the Pirates won this game 14-2. For Pittsburgh, Joe Bowman was on the mound, 9 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed, 2 runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts in the victory. Now we go right back to the French Championships in 1955. And on the men's side, we saw the defending champion, Tony Trabert, defeat Sven Davidson 2-6, 6-1, 6-4, 6-2 in 4 sets. This would be his second French title and the third of 5 major titles. Then on the women's side, Angela Mortimer defeated Dorothy Node 2-6, 7-5, 10-8 in 3 sets for her first major singles title of 3 overall titles. Right back to baseball in 1958, Hank Sauer and Bob Schmidt of the San Francisco Giants become the first players in National League history to hit consecutive pinch hit home runs in a 10-9 loss to the Milwaukee Braves. Not only was this the first time in National League history this happened, but this was also the first time in Major League history that this occurred in extra innings. 3 years later in 1961 at the LPGA Western Open, Mary Lena Falk with a score of 10 under won by 6 strokes ahead of runner-up Betsy Rawls. This would be Falk's only win in a major championship for the LPGA. 3 years later, we go right back to baseball in 1964. Sandy Koufax of the Los Angeles Dodgers throws his third no-hitter. In this game, they defeated the Philadelphia Phillies 3-0. Koufax threw 97 pitches with 1 walk. He actually only had 1 3-ball count the entire time, and that was on the walk. He also struck out 12 batters, and he became only the second player to throw 3 no-hitters in the 20th century, along with Bob Feller. Now we move to cricket in 1971, and the Pakistani batsman Zaheer Abbas scores 274 versus England. This would be the 6th most runs scored by a Pakistani batsman in their history. Then we move up a year later to 1972 at the French Open for the men's title. Andres Gimeno wins his only major singles title, defeating Patrick Proisy 4-6, 6-3, 6-1, 6-1. 5 years later at the 1977 French Open for the women's title, Mima Jozovec wins her only Grand Slam title, defeating Florenta Mihai 6-2, 6-7, 6-1. Then we stick with the French Open on the women's side. In 1983, Chris Evert defeated Mima Jozovec 6-1, 6-2 for her 15th Grand Slam title of 18 and her 5th French title. 3 years later, the 1988 French Open for the women's side, Steffi Graf defeated Natalia Severa 6-0, 6-0. This was the shortest Grand Slam final in the Open era at only 32 minutes. This would be Graf's 3rd major title of 22 and the 2nd leg of a Grand Slam in 1988. Also in 1988, in Major League Baseball, Rickey Henderson steals 2 bases to make a record for the Yankees at 249 stolen bases. Henderson would end up with 326 stolen bases for the Yankees, and that record would stay until Derek Jeter ended up breaking it, having 358. Also in 1988, at the NBA Western Conference Finals, the Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Dallas Mavericks 4-3. Los Angeles took games 1 and 2, Dallas took games 3 and 4, then LA, then Dallas. It was all up to Game 7. In Game 7, Los Angeles defeated the Mavericks 117-102. James Worthy scored 28 points in Game 7 and averaged 23.4 over the series, along with Byron Scott, Magic Johnson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all averaging double digits for the Lakers. This was too much to handle for the Dallas Mavericks, led by Mark Aguirre with 24.7 points, Derek Harper, and Rolando Blackman. Sticking with the NBA, in 1993, the Chicago Bulls defeated the New York Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals 4-2. Michael Jordan averaged 32.2 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 7 assists, with Scottie Pippen averaging 22.5 points in the Bulls' victory. The Knicks were led by Patrick Ewing in this series. He's what kept them in it. He averaged 25.8 points and 11.2 rebounds, along with John Starks, who averaged 15.2. The Knicks won the first 2 games, but then they lost the next 4, couldn't even force a Game 7 as the Bulls moved on. Now we go right back to the French Open in 1994 for the women's title. Arantxa Sanchez Vicario defeated Mary Pierce 6-4, 6-4 for her 2nd career major victory of 4 total. This would also be her 2nd French title in the singles game. Back to the NBA, a year later in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Orlando Magic defeated the Indiana Pacers 4-3. The Magic won 105-81 in Game 7, led by Shaquille O'Neal, who scored 25 points in Game 7 while averaging 27.3 for the series. Penny Hardaway also averaged 19.6 points in that series and 7.3 assists. That was too much for the Pacers, led by Reggie Miller, 25.9, and Rich Smith with 18.3 points per game. Also in 1995, the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks, created a world record score for a rugby union international while they played Japan. They ended up defeating Japan 145-17. Personally, that's not the biggest blowout I've ever seen in a rugby game. I'm not going to get into that here. I can maybe get into it if you guys are interested, but not here. Now we move up to 1996, and we have history that was made for a major league farm club in baseball. Pamela Davis threw 1 scoreless inning for the Jacksonville Suns, the Detroit Tigers AA affiliate, in their victory over the Australian Olympic team in an exhibition. Davis became the first woman to pitch for a major league farm club in that 1 inning. Davis gave up a double to the first batter, but then retired the next 3, not allowing a run. 2 years later in 1998 at the NHL Eastern Conference Finals, the Washington Capitals defeated the Buffalo Sabres 4-2. The Sabres took game 1, but then the Capitals took games 2, 3, 4, couldn't close it out in 5. In game 6, the score was 1-1 after 1, 2-2 after 2. It would end up going to overtime. Then Joe Juneau scored 6.5 minutes into overtime for the Capitals' victory 3-2. This would be the first time the Capitals would ever see the Stanley Cup Finals. A year later in the 1999 NHL Western Conference Finals, the Dallas Stars defeated the Colorado Avalanche 4-3. The Stars would end up winning Game 7 4-1. Dallas would have 1 goal after 1, then 3 goals after 2 periods, with Mike Keane scoring 2 goals in the second. Both teams scored 1 in the third, but the Avalanche couldn't come back. The Stars would end up winning 4-1, moving to the Stanley Cup. Now we move back to the NBA. In 2000 at the Western Conference Finals, the Los Angeles Lakers defeated the Portland Trail Blazers in 7 games. In Game 7, the Lakers won 89-84, and they were led by Kobe Bryant. Bryant had 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists in Game 7. But overall in the series, Shaquille O'Neal had 25.9 points per game with 12.4 rebounds. Kobe Bryant had 20.4 points per game. That was too much to handle for the Blazers, Rasheed Wallace, Steve Smith, and Scottie Pippen. 5 years later, back to the French Open, in the women's title, Justine Henin-Hardenne wins the first of 3 straight French titles, defeating Mary Pierce 6-1, 6-1. This would be the third major of 7 major victories for Hardenne. 4 years later in 2009, Randy Johnson, a member of the San Francisco Giants, notched his 300th career victory in a 5-1 win. This victory led to Johnson becoming only the 24th pitcher in MLB history to get 300 wins. Johnson, 6 innings pitched, 2 hits allowed, 1 run, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Johnson would end his career in 2009 and he would end up with 303 career victories. In 2011 at the French Open for the Women's Championship, Li Na became the first Chinese player to win a Grand Slam singles title. She did this by defeating Francesca Schiavone 6-4, 7-6. This would be the first of 2 major victories in the single game for Na. Finally, in the 2016 French Open on the women's side, Garbina Muguruza defeated Serena Williams 7-5, 6-4 to claim her first Grand Slam title of 2 overall victories. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. If I left anything out, let me know. If I mispronounced any of the names, I'm sorry. But there you have it. For Nick Dwyer and the 10th inning. See ya.